Produced by Podcast Architects.
Welcome back to another episode of The Path Forward. My guest is making me laugh. I'm your host, as always, Dr. Rick Fernandez, and I'm here with Dr. Michelle Cavazos of Gregory Portland ISD.
Hello, welcome.
I am very welcome. You have a lovely setup. Do you see the background?
Thank you.
Yes. That's
kind
of
you. Hip, right?
It's very you. I will say that.
Very me.
Yes, very nice, very ready to go. Everything is where it needs to be.
Well, I have an amazing chief of communications and community engagement who has taught me well.
It's good to have one of those.
Yes. Yes. That's an understatement. Yes.
So let's jump right in. We're friends. So
yes.
I want to put that out there. So I am biased. So I won't say anything bad about you while we're talking. But afterwards, maybe. So I want to know your story. How did you get into education, and when did you know I'm going to serve students?
It's probably the only thing I ever wanted to do is working with kids. I started in high school I'm from up north originally, and I worked in parks and recreation in swimming. I taught swim lessons. I was first a swim lesson aide, and then taught swim lessons. And I remember as the aide, the teacher would have kids come out one at a time from the wall and swim out to him or her and back.
Okay.
And I'm like, what are the other kids just sitting there for? And their parents are watching us. And so I was like, okay, kick your legs or have them do something. So they were doing something while the one was swimming back and forth.
Okay.
But I've always loved kids. And then just the opportunity to level the playing field and leverage assets that individuals bring. And education's always been kind of in my family. My grandfather taught physics and chemistry. My grandmother taught in a one-room school. She taught kinder up through 8th grade.
Oh, wow.
My other grandma worked in the school cafeteria. My stepdad was a carpenter for a school district. I've had one of my younger brothers was a head custodian at a school, and I've had uncles who were custodians.
Oh, wow.
So school's always, my mom was a secretary at the maintenance department, and so just being in that environment and getting to be around people.
So you knew. When you went to college, did you?
Yeah, that was my major. Yeah.
Okay.
And then my second major, I was going to minor in Spanish, and it turned into my second major. So I have a elementary ed degree and a Spanish teaching degree.
What kind of student were you?
I was a perfectionist, although I was the one.
Oh, here we go. Let's get
but I was the one. So when the teachers would ask a question, I would never answer. I didn't want to answer, but I'd say the answer under my breath. And I remember the kid in front of me, Jeff, we always had to sit alphabetically, Jeff Moravitz. And he always sat in front of me.
He got A's?
I would say the answer under my breath, but because I wasn't confident enough to just say it out loud and be like, it's this. And he would say it, and the teacher was like, yes, that was right. And I'm like.
Did he ever say thank you?
No.
But
that wasn't his place to do. It's my own fault.
So you were never in trouble? You were
Not really. I did in middle school. I got in trouble because we took spelling tests. I remember 7th grade, and I didn't really like my teacher so much, and so I would write my words really small. And she asked me not to do it because she had a hard time reading them, but I kept doing it anyway. That's probably about the worst thing I ever did.
So this poor elderly lady.
I don't know that she was elderly. She was older than me.
Oh, so this poor blind lady that couldn't see.
I think you're making a lot of assumptions.
I'm just going on what you said. This poor lady, I can just see her like straight. Cavazos, what? I told you. That's the picture I'm getting. Well, it's good to know that you were not a troublemaker.
No, I wasn't. I didn't have time to be a troublemaker. I worked 3 jobs through high school because I knew if I was going to pay for school, I needed to find the money myself.
Okay.
So I worked 3 jobs. I ran varsity cross country and track from my freshman year on. Was a varsity swimmer. Took all advanced classes and so I was a little bit too busy to get into trouble.
It just gets better and better. So what was your GPA?
I don't know.
You know?
No, I don't. I graduated in the top 10%.
Oh.
So I know that much.
I graduated.
Which then helped me get scholarships. What was your?
I mean, I was at least in the top half of the class.
Well,
I mean, it was big school. I mean, 4,000 kids. I was somewhere in the middle of
There
that.
you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I got in trouble occasionally. I got pops a couple times
Mm-hmm.
before they outlawed them. Man, they would have been doing me a favor had they outlawed SWATs before my time. But was a very busy kid. I guess that what the kids is that what the
Yeah.
teachers call it now? He's just busy.
Maybe.
He's just busy. So
Just have to find a different way to engage you.
yeah, the paddle is what they used to engage me. So, but that's interesting. So 3 jobs. All right. So what did you do while you were in high school? I'm curious to know about your high school jobs.
Well, the big one was working at the pool.
Right.
So I was taught swim lessons, lifeguard, and then manager.
Okay.
And I would always take every hour, like all the hours. If someone couldn't work, I'm like, God, I'm take them. And then I worked at a movie theater for a while, and which was great because you got a free pass to go to the movies.
Did you let anybody sneak in the movies?
No, I'm a rule follower, or what more so then.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the movie theaters. What else?
Yes. And then, so up north, there's this wonderful, that's facetious, job called detasseling.
The what?
Detasseling?
What is that?
So in Iowa, I grew up in town, but there a lot of people would do this job called detasseling, which is essentially castrating corn to cross-pollinate. And it's a really not unfun job. It pays well. Like as high school kids would work, it was hard work, but they could make good money doing that.
How much? Can I ask? How much do you get paid to do that?
That was $7 an hour.
Oh, that's not
That's like
bad.
30 years ago.
That's not bad.
So that was
Okay.
At that time, it was really good money. But it was hard work. I remember, I mean, I'm not afraid of doing hard work, but I was able then to pick up more hours at the pool. And in the summer up there, there were 3 different pools. And so I didn't have a car until I graduated from college. I bought my car when I graduated from college. And so I would ride my bike all up to each of the 3 different pools. Like I'd start this one in the morning doing lessons, and then I'd ride to this one in the afternoon to be the manager. And then there'd be a pool party at the other one. So I was able to work all day long and make good money.
So you're
for college.
Your work ethic as a superintendent, do you think it stems from how you grew up and everything that you had to do in planning and just knowing, all right, if this is the goal, these are the sacrifices I'm going to have to make?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And hard work doesn't scare me, and when it's for the right reasons.
So how do you this is something we've been talking about with a lot of guests. What's the advice you give kids about the sacrifices that have to be made, right, to achieve success, whether it's in the classroom or on the field or in college or in the workforce? Like, what do you tell a kid that's like, look, I'm talented, but I just don't want to put in the work? Mm-hmm. What would you tell them from your experience?
It's a good question.
I mean, circle back. I can circle back to that one.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know, because I'm not necessarily an advice giver. I'm more of a questioner.
No, you give great advice. I've asked your advice multiple times, so you don't get to get out of that jail, get out of jail free card with that one.
Oh, okay.
You give great advice. So all right,
Thank you. But
So if it's a relative, like you don't have to think about what you say, but if like, hey, you need to get it together. What's the sacrifice that maybe some kids are not making in order to achieve their goals?
I think it can maybe the work ethic.
Yeah.
I look at even me as a parent. I think of my kids. My kids have a good work ethic, but I also look at I've probably enabled them and as a parent, we always want our kids to have it easier than we,
Yes.
or I shouldn't say always, but I wanted my kids to have it easier than I did.
Yeah.
And so I've probably provided more than necessary and not give them those opportunities to have to struggle through some things that part of that struggle is part of the growth.
The productive struggle, as we call it.
Yeah.
No, I'm bad about that too, because you want to protect them, and you're like, I don't want them to have to go through the same pain and the same trials. And if I've worked hard to be able to prevent that, right? And so, why wouldn't I prevent that? But you're right. Like I do the same thing where I think about.
But I mean, I told my kids, I'm like, you have to graduate in the top 10% of your class because then you're more likely to get scholarships. They wanted to go to college. And I had, it said, okay, top 10%, go to the school that's going to give you the most money.
Yeah.
And I'm going to expect you to have some skin in the game. You're going to have to pay. I'm not saving to pay for your full college. No one, scholarships paid for mine and myself.
Right.
And I guess I wanted them to be self-sufficient. Like, you can't rely on other people to take care of it for you.
No, absolutely. I'm trying to teach them about the price of money, so to speak, right? So what are all the things that go into earning money? Because right now they don't have a context for that. And I worry that sometimes our kids in our schools, they don't have a context for the work that is required to be good, to be really great at what you do. And then all the processes that go into that between high school and college and the workforce and those choices that you make along the way. And that's a big part of what we talk about is how do we bring in our industry, our friends outside of the school system to help with that? Because a lot of times, it's like my son, right? So if I tell him, hey, on your jump shot, you need to do A, B, or C, I get the, but if somebody else tells him,
always,
it's like, it's the gospel, right? Like, oh, okay, well, I'm like, dude, I just told you that 35 times. And so hearing it from people in the workplace, I think makes an impact. Which brings me to my next question. So you guys are doing some unbelievable things here in Gregory, Portland. And there's a small part of me, when I say small, 90%, that's a little bit jealous. But I've been admiring from afar. So tell me some of the things, the great things that are happening that you're proud of, that get you excited, that get your board excited, and ultimately your kids excited.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that's a really visible thing that we're really excited about is our career and technology programs, which, I've heard others talking about their programs. And so for us locally or regionally, we partner with our industry partners to build out our programs. This year, we opened our new career and technology facility, which is, I got to inherit this amazing space where kids are getting to learn. And we have a really strong health sciences program and are building it out and strengthening it even more, and our anatomy and physiology classes, as well as process technology, which is we've worked with industry, and they have donated models that our students can work with and learn from. So that then they can go straight into industry. They earn their certifications. Many of the positions around here, kids can get their associate's degree or their certifications and go straight to work and not have the college debt. Man. And they're earning big dollars right away, which is a game changer.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, tell me if this is not you don't get this piece too when you're talking to parents or kids, right? So our frame of reference for career and technology, or mine anyways, wood shop or auto tech where you're changing spark plugs or you're doing the oil change. And to take that and try to relate that to what's going on now in high schools, it's nowhere near that. I mean, everything is digital. Everything is highly technical. You have to have a really unique skill set to do those things. And part of the framing of that for parents has been the most difficult part because we're used to what we experienced in high school. I mean, I didn't do any castrating of corn, but other than that, I'm sorry, I had to throw that in. But other than that, you live off your experiences. And so if you don't see it or you don't have an opportunity to understand how it's changed, it's hard. It can be pigeonholed as, oh, this is the blue collar work, or oh, these are for the kids. This is for the kids that are not going to college, and that is absolutely not the case.
Yeah, I think there's a big need to just socially and not necessarily societally change our mindset of college and career.
Right.
I think the things that we've gone through as a nation, as a world, in the last few years has really helped. I guess me change my perception of, people are now we want balance. We want quality of life. And so does it mean going a college pathway? Is it going straight to career? And whatever someone chooses is the right path for them. One's not necessarily better than the other. There is a need for both avenues. Yeah,
I think the stigma of, career in tech or the shop class, essentially, or vocational tech. I heard that term used. Like, those certification tests are just as hard, if not harder, than some of those AP exams. I mean,
Well, and I look at what our kids are doing. So our health science and phlebotomy students, I mean, they're working with something called a syndaver,
What is
which it's a cadaver that is a synthetic cadaver.
Okay.
And it's life size and it's in the tank of water. Fortunately, it doesn't smell like formaldehyde, so we don't need to, have all the embalming fluids and everything.
It'd be cool if you did. That's okay.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But so they're getting to learn on a synthetic cadaver. We've got this thing called an animatage, which is a digital body, and it's from live humans, but it's all the cross sections, and the students are able to manipulate the heart rate. Like there's one, for example, of a pregnant mother and the child, and so it's like, okay, if the mother's heart rate goes up to this, and they can slide it over and make the mother's heart rate go up, what impact does that have on the baby's heart rate, and what's happening here and there? And it's incredible. Like you mentioned technology, even auto tech. Okay, everything's computerized. So you plug into the vehicle and it diagnoses what needs to be improved. The process technology, I mean, that is all high tech, and there's so much safety related to it, and
Sure.
it's integral to it. I'm envious. I'm like, I wish that I had those opportunities, as a student.
Yeah, I mean, I made it an ashtray, and I didn't even smoke, but it was an ashtray, so.
Yeah, I made a shovel.
For the corn?
No, it was not for the corn.
You shouldn't have told me that. I'm sorry.
It was how to fold metal. It was cool learning it. I was like, oh, yeah, but I don't use that now.
My shop teacher used to smoke in class because, it was in the shop out back, and he'd be like the Marlboro Reds, just burn them like one after another. I was like, well, I guess I know why we're making the ashtrays, because poor Mr. Janik is over there killing a lung. So.
Which our kids now can research and learn, what kind of lung disease, what stage is this at? And how can we help this person lead a healthier life? Or
not making ashtrays. So
right.
That's probably not what we need to be doing. But it has evolved, it feels like within the last 5 years, exponentially. And I don't know if that's a product of COVID or just the way the job market has evolved, but the technology that's available to kids and what's going to be required for them to use, I think, is exciting, but also a little frightening if we don't make sure they have access to it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the things that I've been most impressed about your leadership is not only are you a friend and you're good at what you do, but your vision to be able to see, okay, this is where things are going, and so we're going to continue to make sure that our kids have access. Because that's the most important thing, right? At least give me a shot. We always talk about, well, what do we want to promise our kids? I just want to make sure that they have a shot to do whatever it is that they're passionate about. Mm-hmm. And that shot is the best that we can possibly provide. But I know you have great support from your board.
Yeah, we have an incredible school board. There's a lot of rhetoric out there around school boards, and we're very, very blessed. We have 7 trustees who are really committed to our employees. I mean, at every level in our organization, they're always looking out for them, and our students. And they, have when they hired me, they said, here's the expectation we have for our student outcomes. We know we are the best district in the state of Texas, and we expect the best results. And they're so supportive. They know exactly where they can help. And they are very clear that they know that the strength of our district depends on the strength of them as a team. Mm-hmm. And they work very closely together. One of the areas, they do a self-assessment. We do one together as a team of 8. We've done it about every 6 months.
Okay.
And so from our beginning of the year to our middle of the year, we made growth in all of our areas. And our area that we're really targeting, that is our area for most growth, is in advocacy.
Okay.
Because one of the roles of a school board is to advocate for the students and the employees, locally, and can be at state and nationally, if potentially. And so actually we're one of 9 districts selected by Raise Your Hand Texas to participate in the first ever trustee advocacy cohort.
Well, the awards just keep coming, don't they?
Well, when you have really great people in your organization, then you can't help but notice.
That's outstanding. And so I believe, didn't you have a school board member get appointed to a committee or something recently?
Yes, to the LAC, the Legislative Advocacy Committee.
Yes.
Through the grassroots with TASB. Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Ms. Gregory, she's our board vice president.
Very cool.
Yes.
So you're working with Raise Your Hand Texas, which is a great advocacy group
Yes.
that's definitely on the side of educators and teachers. So y'all are in the mix, then. That's where you have to be, is a seat at the table, right? Is all you can ever ask.
Well, and I think that's something that as educators, I think we've talked about it before, is that we just do our work. We're more or less compliant, and we get in and care about kids and people, and we do the work, and we don't always lift our head up to look at, wait, we've got to be speaking at a larger stage.
Right.
And gosh, how do we do that? And do it so that we're really heard. And so it's really just a great opportunity. And then we hope to be able to infuse that through our system. It's part of our vision: educate, inspire, and empower. So how can we empower our employees and our students to have that agency, to advocate for themselves, but then also for their families, their schools, their communities as a whole.
What do you think are some of the issues kind of on the horizon for us as educators? Some of the things we need to be cognizant of, or maybe work towards getting the information out there that's going to be affecting us. Anything that you can see from your perspective?
Well, for us locally, there's some things around school finance, but I think that's across the state.
Sure.
All the funding formulas. Another is looking at the teacher retirement system.
Yes.
We're looking at how do we keep educators or even attract people to education.
Right.
And when the rule to retire from the education system in Texas is now, it's the rule of 95.
Yeah.
And
scary.
mine was a rule of 80. So fortunately, I'm at it. But, it's like, 95 age plus years of experience. That's a long time for someone just starting out. And then looking at the multiplier that hasn't changed in over a decade.
The insurance, cost of insurance.
Yeah, so there's a lot of external forces that weigh on education. So that's, one aspect. I think, too, there's a lot of, let's just say extras.
Yes.
That's
a good word for it.
Being, that are put on, there's a lot of expectations put on educators.
Absolutely.
As kind of the be-all, end-all, fix everything. And, it's great examples. Like at the beginning of COVID, everybody was lifting up teachers like, oh my gosh, they didn't realize how challenging it is.
Yeah.
And with 2 or 3 or 6 at home, as opposed to, and then, oh my gosh, some of our teachers have 22 to 25 in their class.
And have to individualize for each student. Oh, yeah.
And then now the pendulums come back of, well, they're not doing enough. And they are.
Yeah.
We have, not just in our district, educators go into the profession because they care about kids and they want to make a difference. They don't wake up saying, well, what can I do today to mess up a kid?
Yeah.
They get up saying, how can I make a difference?
Yeah.
And they're doing the very best they can with the tools and resources that they have, and with their hearts are really in the right place. And what would really help is people really shifting and looking at how can we support, our educators are not the bad guys.
Yeah, and what's interesting is it feels like people assume that we're not dealing with some of the same things in our own homes and our families, right? I mean, with all of the controversy about masks and no mask and vaccine and no vaccine, that hits educators' families as well, because depending upon your family and what you believe, you're going through those same struggles and trying to figure out what's in the best interest of your families. And then coming to school, and maybe you're having to implement something that you agree with wholeheartedly, or that that's not really, and having to work through that and still educate kids. And I think there's a lack of understanding from some folks about what would happen if our teachers just said, sorry guys, it's you guys can have it, right? You want to do it, there's a better way to do it, then y'all have it. No one wants that, because who's going to educate our kids? So it's good to hear you say that, and that's going to be something that collectively everybody has to band together. Like, look guys, we're doing everything that we possibly can. We would love some bipartisan collective support here, to get us moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So your board they've been extremely supportive. If you had one thing on the horizon, you say, all right, we would really like to take a look at this, whether it be a program or a facility or something out there that may be like a wish list. Is there anything that you've seen that anybody else is doing or something that you've seen that like, hey, that might be a good thing for our kids down the line?
Mm-hmm. Well, we're kind of initiating a lot of things.
Oh,
I mean, just because we've heard,
Yes.
and we've just gotten our P-TECH designation. But a big thing that's not necessarily a wish list. I wish it was done now, but is our early childhood center, which we are super excited about. It's going to be for our 4 and 5-year-olds, for pre-K and kinder students. And we will be it'll have experiential learning in it for
So
students.
explain experiential learning because I don't know what that is. I kind of do, but
Yeah, I know.
help me
You're
out.
playing like you don't. So experiential learning, when we look at students who are coming to school that are school age, 4 and 5-year-olds, there is a 30 million word gap between students who are coming from an economically disadvantaged household as opposed to a family that's not economically
Right.
disadvantaged because of the language that is used at home, the opportunities for different experiences
Sure.
that, and so we have this opportunity to start. So we've got our career and technology at the upper end, the older students, but we have an opportunity through our early childhood center to start all of our students on the same playing field.
That's awesome.
And so experiential learning is basically our kids will come into, there's going to be 18 different experiences where students that are museum quality, where kids will be learning and engaging and building their literacy and numeracy skills.
Okay.
So, for example, and we pulled together teachers. And actually, let me step back. Even before that, we read a book to our students about if I built a school. And so we read it to our kindergartners in our district, and they drew pictures of what they would want in their school.
Really?
And so our teams that are architects and designers have incorporated those elements into this facility. And with the experiences, they range from the coast, because we often make an assumption that even though we live here, that all of our kids have been to the beach.
No.
And not all of them have. They don't know what sand feels like.
That's right.
What are these different boats and ships that are coming in and out of the harbor and the bay? And then there's also space. There's a room that will have a rocket in it, and they will get to learn and build, the work on number skills and literacy through these different experiences. There's polar, where they'll be able to build an igloo, but then also get to work with ice and learn about what are the animals that live in these regions. City, the farm to table experiences. So there's 18 different experiences that kids will be rotating throughout the school year.
I don't think I've heard of anybody else doing that.
There's a few others who are doing it, but not district-wide.
Okay.
And ours will be for pre-kinder and kindergarten students, so that we can really accelerate that language, so that our target is when our kids leave us at the end of kindergarten and go to their elementaries and first grade, we will have closed any kind of language gap.
Wow.
And then just be able to further accelerate.
So, third grade no longer becomes the issue, right? So
Right.
that marker of if you don't have your literacy skills by third grade,
Right.
it's a struggle. So I'm trying to envision like how fun, because I think part of it is obviously we're trying to get them the skills that they need, but also how fun for them to come to school. Because half of the joy, like those first couple of years, you either have a great experience or you don't. And that kind of propels you one way or the other with how you love school or how you would rather be doing other things. So I'm just trying to think like, God, I would have loved that.
It would have exactly, like you described yourself as a student,
Oh, yeah.
it would have been the exact environment where you would have just completely thrived in. Kids, I'm sorry, I don't even like going to school, like to a place and having to sit for hours and
that's awful.
sit and get, but then the added challenge and opportunity for us is when they leave and go to first grade, how have we transformed the way we deliver instruction in first or fourth grade so it is interactive and engaging? We're doing that at the career and technology end, at the high school end.
Right.
Well, all of our learners want to be engaged. If we think, people complain about, they're on their devices. But when they're on their devices, yes, there's some are doing on social media and such, but a lot of them are looking up, how do I do this? How do I do that?
Right.
And they're innovating on their own. So how do we capitalize on that rather than shut it down?
Yeah.
They've got that natural curiosity, and we have an opportunity to really leverage that.
Yep. And that's the hard part is I'm teaching how I learned a lot of, and I do it too, right? And I do it with my kids and teaching them skills that, this is the way I learned it. So this is what I'm familiar with. So therefore this has to be the way, right? When often it's not the way because someone else has done it, either tweaked it or done it a little bit better or taught him to shoot the jump shot a little bit differently where he listened finally. But that's a big piece of how do you kind of break some of those mental models to continue to involve practice.
Well, there's the added challenge of we want to make sure that all of our kids are progressing.
Yes.
And so we do have, there does need to be a level of accountability to see, okay, are we growing our kids academically and in their content areas? But I think for the adults, you're right, it's not how we learned.
Right.
And maybe we would have learned better if we'd had that opportunity. But how do we shift our mindset that within the parameters and the stakes that we're held to? Because at the end of the day, we want all of our kids to grow, and we want them to have agency, and be able to interact socially. When we then look at that whole pipeline to career and to college. Everyone's looking at what used to be called the soft skills, but it's really their interpersonal skills. And can they self-regulate? Yeah. And are they self-aware? And can they communicate with other people who may think differently than them or have different opinions, but still be friends at the end of the day?
Sure. Yeah, it's more about talking to some business folks that have been on the podcast. It's, do you have the skill set? And if you don't, are you coachable, trainable, and can you work together with a team?
Yeah.
And, degrees and majors are coming up less and less, and it's more about, hey, can you function in a setting?
Yeah. And how can you create and innovate? And in I have a student ambassador council, and they have been working on our profile of a graduate. And so that's been our project this year, their project. So they started and looked at different samples and have come up with their traits. And then they ran it through my teacher advisory council and got their feedback, and then they refined it. And then they've met with our business leaders. We brought them in, and they gave them really great feedback. They were like, the kids were so, excited to get it. But then the business leaders who came in just said, man, I would hire them right now. Just these kids, what they're doing and how they're expressing themselves. And then the next level is they're going to run it through our learning framework group, who's building it's a group of educators who are building our learning framework around curriculum to get feedback. And then it'll go to our board. And they've been reporting out to our board of trustees each month on our progress. Yeah,
because that's the ultimate outcome is why everything exists, right? This is what we want to produce. This is the opportunities we want to give. That's awesome. Wow, I had some idea, but not to the extent. I can't tell you the early learning center. Like, I wish I could move my kids here, my little one.
Well, you sure can. We've got homes, and we're building more.
Yes, y'all are.
And the coast is a beautiful place to live, and it's an amazing district to be part of.
We'll probably have to edit that out because my wife would be all for that.
You don't have to edit that out.
Like, we're moving back. So my wife's a graduate from GP, as you know.
Yes.
So loves the community, had a great experience here, and couldn't be more complimentary of everything. And she's, I said, you got to see some of the stuff they're doing. Like, it is unbelievable. Like, unbelievable being from the elementary side and me being mostly from the high school side. It's like you're getting to see the whole continuum of what they can offer kids. And it's just, it'll blow your mind.
Yeah. And that's what's so fun. I've worked from elementary. I've been a principal at elementary, middle, and high school.
Yes.
And so having working with 4-year-olds all the way up to 21-year-olds, and just being able to see that whole continuum and see where do you begin, and then as we have new students come in at different entry points, how do we onboard them but ensure that they have like that amazing experience too?
That's cool. So which one did you enjoy the most?
Oh my gosh, I loved them all.
You can't.
Yes, I can. Like I loved what was fun. I was a principal of an elementary and middle school at the same time for a few years.
Okay.
And so I would see some of my elementary kids then become middle schoolers, and some who in elementary were real quiet and reserved, in middle school let loose
Not so
a little
much.
bit. And then opposite, some of the kids in elementary who didn't have a lot of self-control by middle school had kind of figured it out. But they're just so much fun. Like elementary and even upper elementary are so inquisitive, and they have no filter, which I think is really awesome. They just tell it like it is. It's like, oh, I wish I could be a little more like that sometimes,
No.
Well, not completely. But then seeing, as they get older, like what are their aspirations, and looking at, having been at middle school with even eighth graders, I look at that middle school experience is so critical for the future. That's why these last few years have been challenging, because at that adolescent age, their brain development is from their peers. It shifts from their family and parents to their peers, and then goes back to growth around from interactions with adults. But I see that eighth grade year when we look at career and college and career, we've got to capture them in elementary and middle.
No doubt.
Because that's when they're still really interested. And the other part, though, that's kind of a struggle, I guess I feel for me, is this cognitive dissonance. Is we're saying, okay, by eighth grade, pick your career path. Well, you're a kid.
Yeah.
And even when they're 17 and walking across, or 18 and walking across the stage to get their diploma, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But even then, they're still kids.
Exactly. And they're going to change. And, all the research tells you that the millennials are changing jobs more so than ever before. And so they're going to have 7, 8, I think last I read, 7 to 8 jobs, for their first 10, 15 years of their career. So I think that trend will continue. Thanks for spending some time with us on The Path Forward. Check back in next week for part 2 with Dr. Michelle Cavazos.